And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to GeekWatch, a subsidiary of the monastery, the open bar of the internet. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me I have 1, 2, 3 good brothers. We have the man of 1,000 magical girls, good brother Cure. We have the man taking over all of your anime, and I was going to make a Flavortown joke, but nah. Besides, that whole Monsters of America thing that broke Lady K is pretty much outdid you. And last but certainly not least, we have the man of 1,000 runes and the CEO of Zadari Enterprises, bringing you up to 1,000%. No, not 1,000, 10,000, because we are 10 times good as that prick guy. Good brother Xanatrix, how the fuck we doing tonight?
I think I'm doing pretty well.
Yes. And just a little sidebar, I just found out that good brother Xan over here is a fellow fan of the VTubers, like myself. So always good to find a brother in arms.
Mm-hmm. Look, real recognize real.
I am perfectly of the opinion that if somehow we could make the VTubers the ruler of the world, or at least Hololive and Niji Sanji, we would have eternal happiness and peace.
No, dude, you're forgetting about the shoujo. That shit, that shit's gonna keep us all happy if you catch my drift.
And
hey,
hang on a sec.
That me?
Sorry, I had to deal with a spammer.
Oh fuck. You got one of those too. I had one of those last night.
Yeah, and I have a scorched earth policy with them.
Yeah, same.
Now, I will note the reason that Gazette didn't happen last night is because after going through my usual sources and going through what was newsworthy enough to talk about, there wasn't enough meat on the bones. And because of that, I decided I'm just gonna punt it to next week.
Yeah, everyone was talking about other events going on in the world that we are not going to talk about here.
That, and there were there were a few. I'm not going to name names, but there were a few people who were acting very unprofessionally in their coverage of certain news. And a certain person who I will not name, who was trying to poison the well with someone who I know personally. But even with that, like I said, I'm still gonna be moving forward. There's a few unimpressions that I want to do before January is out, and also I can safely say that a certain voice actor who I had on last month will be coming back later this month.
Awesome. I like that.
And as well as one other surprise that we're currently working on the date, which the best way I can describe it is in a world. Look, if you've seen honest trailers, you won't be far off. before that, we have GeekWatch business to attend to, and admittedly, this is something that has been in the back of my mind for a while. Now we have had now I'd say obviously some of the people watching and some of the people here have have had a long and illustrious experience in one way or another with with Power Rangers or in the case of Men of Culture with Super Sentai. And we have seen the whole shift to theatrical several times over the course of I want to say about what 26 years now.
Good lord.
Somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm. And because of but each one of them has never really been able to hit the mark compared to the presence of the weekly TV shows. Well, semi-weekly because FTN.
Yeah.
Um, but even with that, I will admit that the catalyst for this particular topic was an offhanded remark that JDF made during the after party of Hyperforce, which I still have a mixed opinion about Hyperforce, and I will continue to have a mixed opinion about um their attempt at doing a Power Rangers RPG, which I thought had a lot of holes, just from a one from a designer perspective and two from a narrative perspective.
Despite the holes that Hyperforce admittedly has, there is one fantastic thing that came out of it that I kept near and dear to my heart, and that is the fact that Paul Schreier got to finally be a Power Ranger.
That was awesome.
Well,
Bulk finally got his chance.
Well, let's be fair. Let's be fair. Schreier was the MVP throughout that whole series.
Yeah.
Well, he had all the tropes to work with. He knew what it was to be on the other side of not being a ranger and being a civilian, and so he knew exactly how to be a ranger. Of course, he got to carry the team.
That, during the Halloween special, he had the best outfit.
Again, he has all of the history. Of course, he did.
Also, there's also the fact that I have to give props to that series to giving me that very brief rivalry that I had with Peter Sidarso, which was basically me roasting him every week. Look, it's not my fault the Dice Gods hated him.
Him and Mike Shell were like kindred spirits during that time.
Yes. But even so, after they would do an episode, they had a bit of an after thing, and they had Jason David Frank JDF on twice, one of which as Dr. O, and then later on as a tie-in for the whole Shattered Grid thing that was going on. And while I don't have any plans on covering it yet, I do get a feeling we will be talking about the Shattered Grid event and just what Boom Comics did as a whole.
Shattered Grid quickly grew past just being a comic book because of how they tried to tie it in with Hyperforce as well.
And a couple other properties as well, but we'll get to that with a bridge. We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah. But there was something that he had offhandedly said, and I'm pretty sure that nothing was ever meant by this, but it was enough to stick in my head, and that was that maybe doing a Ranger series on something like Netflix. Now I know that there was the now brief window where whole series were on Netflix, and for some reason that's being taken off. Way to give Pirates an actual argument on that front.
Nice job, Hasbro. I hope you've got a plan in place.
You mean more arguments because there were already plenty in place.
Yeah, it's because I don't want to delve too deep into the piracy argument, but I think I've made my stance clear that people taking a black and white attitude are the real problem that I have. Um, and in a few cases, I've gotten myself blocked by some people because I said when they went on anti-piracy rants because I said congratulations, you're proving Gabe Newell right.
Remember, everybody, the fat man who is no longer in charge of Valve, it seems, because he can't seem to steer the ship anymore, once said that piracy is a service issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I've brought that up myself in my own comments on piracy.
And when it comes to when it comes to the topic of the movies, now, like I said, we have had 3 attempts, and neither one has been able to fully stick the landing for one reason or another. The first one was, if memory serves, in '95 with what I refer to as the Fox movie, which ultimately is rendered pointless because the upgrade was gained in different forms.
Yeah, the 95 movie is basically now considered an AU. It is not taking place in the main timeline since, they would turn around and get the exact same upgrades and Megazord and everything else in the series starting in, not immediately into season 3 because there was that other crossover they tried to do. Yeah, we don't talk about that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and to be fair, we'll have some comments about some of the design aspects of this movie soon.
Yeah.
All I gotta say is we did lose probably one of the best hammy villains ever, though.
Oh, abso-freaking-lutely.
He was the highlight. Ivan Ooze was the highlight.
He stole the fucking show, hands fucking down.
I get the feeling that I think the only way that you could have had a bigger show stealer, and I realize that this would be a case of a complete disaster if this had happened, but I want you to picture this: a future Power Rangers villain being played by Brian Blessed.
Oh God! Oh God, no!
That
oh, God.
That is, now I'm putting things together and I'm like, what if we had a villain played by Brian Blessed in the same movie where Zordon is Bryan Cranston?
Oh, see, Jesus Christ.
See, I was trying to be nice with rehabilitating the people that we broke last week. Now you got to make me do all that shit again.
You should have seen this coming.
Not my fault. I wasn't here last week.
Fair enough.
But, and of course, then I want to say it was 97-ish when the Turbo movie came out.
Sounds about right.
Which was a glorified premiere episode.
Yeah, this was the only movie that was in canon with the main timeline because the events of the actual Turbo series they follow up from the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was the only movie I didn't watch.
Yeah, and in fact, up until the cast change, they actually used the morphing sequence from the movie in the show, which was definitely a bit jarring when you would go from the TV style quality of the show up until that point, and then they go into the morphing because all of a sudden the quality of the video looks drastically different.
Mm-hmm. Now, and of course, then a few years ago, we get after the hell that was the latter years of the Neil Saban era, we ended up getting the Hasbro movie.
Nope, that wasn't Hasbro.
Okay,
it was Lionsgate.
Yeah, that was Lionsgate. I apologize.
You think Hasbro would make a movie that's anything other than a glorified toy commercial?
I don't think Hasbro would even try and make a movie because that would involve spending money.
Hey, they still do it with Transformers movies from time to time. But again, glorified toy commercial.
Yeah.
And if, I'm not gonna delve too deep into the all the ways that Hasbro screwed up when it comes to Transformers, because there's already somebody else who does that job for me. And that would be TJ.
Yep, TJ Omega. He is the plastic addict.
And but throughout that throughout that we have three kind of approaches with each movie. But of course, if we're gonna bring up the second instance, and we will get to it in a moment, but I just wanted to put a bit of a tease. Yes, we will be talking about the biggest bell end in the in the entirety of this series.
Oh, yeah. I'm cracking my knuckles for that because I cannot wait to dig into that a little bit.
So we'll start with the '95 movie, which is a case of trying to do a one-off of established characters. Basically, the whole, hey, this thing is really popular. Let's bring it to the silver screen. We see this happen a lot, and I mean a lot.
And to be fair, I think making a movie during that time was inevitable because this, a couple of years before that, when '93, when the series first started coming out, it blew the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
Every little boy was watching it,
and a lot of little girls to boot. It was an all ages thing. Like, they had one particular event where it caused traffic jams because it was so backed up with people trying to get in.
Mm-hmm.
So, a movie during that time, it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. But as we are about to go into, apparently this is where we start to learn that Saban, even back in its early days, didn't always know what the fuck they were doing.
I believe I did a meme referencing this exact thing.
Yeah.
If you know the Rangers suck, clap your hands.
I'm not.
And admittedly, when I did that, I was mostly roasting Haim Saban himself, who seems to have a few eggs short of a picnic.
That's an understatement.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, right off the bat, the biggest problem is that they handed it to people who clearly had never watched Power Rangers, had no idea what they were getting themselves into, and were expected to make a major motion picture out of a cultural, at the time, cultural zeitgeist.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and right away, as the thing we learn is that behind the scenes, it was a mess.
Which honestly doesn't surprise me one bit, because I could teach a 4-year class on the many mistakes that Fox made, especially in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
If we want to boil down how hard they did not know their own source material, you only have to look at the very, very general outline of the B plot, which boils down to adults suck, kids will save the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. For those who don't remember the movie, the B plot was like, as Ivan Ooze's plan involved basically taking control of the parents of Angel Grove, using them to restore his giant machines, the ectomorphicons, and then once they were done putting these together and re-energizing them, they were to walk to the nearby quarry and jump off.
To quote Ivan Ooze, "You go there now and leap to your doom."
And they made sure you understood that was the plan, because you heard these parents repeating that as they walk to the construction
doom.
sites like zombies.
Leap to our doom.
So, because of this, all of the kids who were originally tricked into helping with this plan, thanks to Ivan's ooze,
which they were drinking and eating too, which was kind of disgusting.
Yeah, I never understood that scene at all.
You saw it in blenders. You saw it in their mouth and on their faces. It's like, why are you eating someone's snot?
Exactly. So the kids, especially the one main kid, the main kid that they use, because like any good Sentai plot, a child actor is going to be the main centerpiece of the plot. That's just how it works. Ends up finding out about the plan because he's trying to help rescue his dad. Convinces all the kids and Bulk and Skull, who are just there for some reason. I don't know why they were involved. They had to be there somewhere.
Because they were still technically high schoolers at that point.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, like, why were they involved in all this? It's just, they had to put Bulk and Skull somewhere in the movie, so they just we'll just throw them in with the kids. We'll make something up with it. And they had to have all the kids go and rescue the parents with this little kid, Orion, I think his name was, leading the charge. It was hilarious. And they had Ryan trying to drive a freaking bullet train.
Yeah, a monorail. I think it was a monorail.
It was a monorail. Oh, it was basic. Yeah, monorail. And of course, this ties into the main plot because during the big battle with Ivan Ooze and the Ectomorphicons, the monorail gets destroyed, and Tommy has to come and basically sit there for a minute and act as a glorified train track so they can cross.
I think the kid's name was actually Fred.
Yeah,
Fred. That's it, Fred.
Fred Kilman, and I still have no idea why to this day I have that memory burned into my head.
Because of the ending credits where he's like, Fred Kelman, the Silver Ranger, and Billy's like, Silver's nice, but don't you think you could shoot a little higher? And he's like, Fred Kelman, the Gold Ranger, and that was so conceited and stupid.
Oh, it was.
I remember that, despite only watching the movie twice when I was that age.
Yeah. Now, a lot of other things behind the scenes also caused a lot of trouble. The creators of the movie, like the producers and directors. Again, here's another sign they didn't know the source material. When they designed the suits originally, as anyone knows, the whole idea is that the Rangers are supposed to keep their identity secret, so they have the helmets with their faces covered up. Well, the producers didn't catch that memo because they were going to have the visors gone. The black visors that they use to see through, they weren't going to be there. It was going to be their faces were going to be on full display.
And we have receipts of this.
Yes, there are images out there online showing the actors, they're on the Rangers in the suits with the visors off. I think the actors had to step in and go, guys, we're supposed to keep our identity secret. We're supposed to have these covered up, right?
And if anybody wants a more emblematic, if anybody wants a more emblematic picture of Fox having people in power making really dumb decisions, because I want to make perfectly clear, as pants on head retarded as this is completely in character for Fox in the 90s. And as an excellent case in point, 2 words: Alien 3.
I thought you were going to say the Doctor Who TV movie.
Oh, that's up there too.
That's a whole other can of worms where that's not just their fault. There were multiple people who are on the chopping block for that. Yes. And then we get to another thing. I actually pulled up the wiki to remind myself of this because I had to double check, remember the name. But then there's the character of Dulcea. Those who've forgotten, Dulcea was the ninjetti warrior who trains the Rangers into using their ninja powers before they get the great power, just to get their same suits back, but with new animals. Oh yeah, the one who when I rewatched the thing for research a few years ago, I kept joking, why is Shauna the she-devil in this movie?
Miss, I have a staff that for some reason turns into 2 half stabs that whistle when I spin them on these handles that seem to only exist for this to make them whistle, because then those handles are never used again.
Yeah.
You couldn't use the two half-staffs as tonfa or something? What is this bullshit?
Yeah. Now, in the movie, most people know that Dulcia was played by Gabrielle Fitzpatrick. However, she was not the original actress casted for this role. And anyone who knows their USA television might actually recognize the name because, yes, as Adek points out in the chat, we've got confirmation from several sources that originally she was going to be played by future Law and Order SVU star Mariska Hargitay.
That'd be an awkward conversation to bring up at conventions.
Yeah. And in fact, they had shot several scenes with Mariska, but unfortunately, I forget exactly why she ended up getting dropped. I think it just didn't work out for some reason. And also, Catherine Sutherland had also auditioned for the role. Mm-hmm. And while she was turned down, apparently the team at Saban liked her performance enough that, well, we know what happened to her from there.
Yeah.
And the rest, you know, is history.
But even with that, there's just there's always a small part of me that wonders if you're gonna go that far to get them fitted in the outfit and be on set, because I'm pretty sure when it came to some of those they were filming. I'm not gonna say on location, but they certainly weren't filming on a set in Los Angeles. I can say that much.
No, I believe the movie was actually filmed in Australia.
And it is specifically, I believe it was mostly filmed around the Queensland area.
Yeah, that's why they had a couple episodes where they went on a big trip and did a couple of stupid shit there and there because they were using that time to film the movie. And you could clearly tell that a lot more focus was being on the movie because the episodes that were filmed during that time did not end up being very good.
Although doing double duty like that's definitely a Saban move because, as I mentioned in the past, he is a massive cheapskate.
Yeah. And good Lord. But if you want to talk about design flaws, shall we talk about the Ninja Megazord in this movie?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say it's the worst CG that I've seen, but I showed you guys the X-Arm trailer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you've not seen this absolute piece of art, I mean, obviously it's based on the same the same Megazords used in Kaku Ranger.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But while for the most part it looks pretty spot on in CG form, you know, the Falcon looks good, the Wolf, the Ape, everything looks good. But once you form the Megazord, you start to realize there's something just a little off with the head.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, they made the CG for both the Megazord and for Ivanus's fully combined Morphicon Zord. Very, very reflective. Everything on them was fucking shiny.
Oh,
like why?
Yeah, it was like they were made out of mirrors. It was that reflective.
I have a bit of a theory when it comes to them doing the whole CG thing. I honestly think that they ran out of time.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I think that they ran out of time when it came to time on the set, so they decided to go CG. Either that, or somebody did not want to spend money to eat and either send it to Toei to have them do a makeup of the suit, or do a suit design themselves, or a third possibility, they thought that audiences wouldn't get a suit set up for the mech.
I mean, the suit would have already been made for Kaku Ranger. Mm-hmm. They could have gotten a spare suit like they had been doing on the TV shows since they'd started importing them over.
Actually, there was only like one. I think prior to that season, there had only been one circumstance where they had original Zord footage, and the one time afterwards was the episode where the Zords got destroyed.
Yeah.
So I get the feeling they didn't have original Zord the Zord suits to play with.
Well, my point was more about the they could have asked for the suit of the Zord to make that footage, like they were getting the actual Zentai suits for the actors when they needed them to be in the suits with the helmets off.
Mm.
I'm also guessing that money was spent in excess in areas where it didn't need to be. Especially the whole. I'd imagine that the Ninjetti suits didn't come cheap.
Yeah.
The big thing is that those suits look very much inspired by Kaku Ranger.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we would later see them reuse something very similar for the actual season. Like they pretty much use those suits for the season itself. But and a lot of money also went into the actual suit designs for the Ranger suits because I mean, well, you guys, for those watching, we see the suit design for the White Ranger here.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell they decided to go a very different direction. Instead of being the spandex suits that we all know and love, cue Dr. K shouting, "This is not spandex, yada yada yada. We're walking."
Yeah, they decided to try and make it look like armor, which in hindsight, I look at that decision, and it seems to be emblematic of not emblematic, but almost a precursor to a problem that I have had for years with a lot of attempts to do superhero suits in non-comic media. There seems to be this I guess insecurity about these suits, and thus we have to put in all these extra details to make it so that no, this isn't just a guy in spandex. Like if you want to see a poster child of this kind of thing, look at say some of the suits in the MCU or otherwise, where you've got to add all these little things that don't really add anything and don't really have a purpose.
Let's just posting in council. Let's just remind you of what the original actual Die Ranger suit that this entire thing is built off of comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that Saban, like, I don't know why they decided to roll together G-Ranger, Die Ranger, and Kaku Ranger by mixing and matching suits and mechs, because the suits of the original 5 are still Z-Ranger.
Actually, Linkara brings up a good point in this argument. The thing of it is that at the time, the original Mighty Morphin suits, the Zoo Ranger suits, were iconic. It was so that when people thought Power Rangers, they thought that design. So Saban felt it was the smart move to not immediately change that after such a short period of time, because it would have lost a lot of attention. It's one of the reasons why Mighty Morphin, lasting for 3 seasons, several years, was the big one that everyone remembers. And it's the fact that when we look back, there's a lot of people who still remember Mighty Morphin. So it did work. It did what it was supposed to do. But they did, obviously there were some things that had to be changed. Like the Green Ranger, well, they didn't have any more Sentai footage with him.
Because Burai dies.
Burai dies. But they needed Tommy because Tommy was the hottest thing since sliced bread at the time.
I never got that. Like,
Actually, I can answer that too. Here's why. When you look back at the original season, Tommy was the only one who had any kind of story whatsoever.
Well, while that's true, Austin St. John is still the better actor.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. I'm not saying that. Yeah, Austin St. John was the better actor, but when you look at story-wise, Tommy was
Is
the
the only
only one who had any kind of development. Everyone else was pretty cookie cutter.
Mhm.
So
Came in, befriended everybody, and then he revealed that I'm the bad guy.
yeah, well, it was more like he was taking over as he became the bad guy because, well, Rita's a bitch. But yeah, that was kind of what led to that. So they had to keep Tommy, but they couldn't use the Green Ranger suit anymore. So like, well, this white guy from this other season looks similar enough to the Z Ranger stuff. We'll just find a way to throw him in there, which then led to Tommy acting like a little child most of the time because, well, in Dire Ranger, the White Ranger was a little kid.
Yes. Kiba Ranger was a child, and transforming made him bigger, which is where I'm guessing Saban got the idea later for.
We'll get to
Turbo.
him.
Yeah,
We'll get to him.
but even with that, I'd say when it came to that particular film, I'm guessing that the reason why they went to Fox instead of trying to fund the thing themselves is because of the mindset of doing an independent film is a very high risk gamble. Like when I think of cases where it actually ended up working, the big one from around that time would be the first Ninja Turtles movie. That technically was an independent film.
Yeah. And they also, much like Power Rangers, they had the cultural zeitgeist at the time because when the first movie came out, Ninja Turtles was super fucking hot. Now, technically, Power Rangers probably could have gotten away with the same thing, but then again, I don't think they would have had the budget that Ninja Turtles did when it made its movie. And again, that's added with Saban's penny pinching problems, you know. It was a 1-2 punch of, what was never going to happen.
Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing the reason why they ended up going with Fox is because the other alternatives were far less appealing. Because if they went with Disney would probably laugh them out the room when it came to it around that time.
Yeah. Also,
yes,
we should
I'm aware
add
of
that.
The irony.
Yeah. Also, we should add that at the time of the movie, Saban already had a pretty good working relationship with Fox because Power Rangers was airing on the Fox Kids network.
Mm-hmm.
So it was probably an easy sell for them.
And but then I guess they decided to try again, and I will freely admit I can understand the logic of doing what they did with the '95 movie. With the Turbo movie, I can't really fathom the logic of that particular move of trying to do what effectively is a season premiere on the big screen.
Yeah, I think they were trying to go for maximum impact because I think even they knew that trying to do Turbo was going to be a challenge. Because they had, for anyone who knows their Sentai, Turbo was based on Car Ranger, and Car Ranger is a drastic shift from previous seasons. I mean,
that's because it's technically entirely a joke series.
Yes.
It was the quintessential joke series at the time. And that proved to be a challenge because the suit designs were drastically different. The whole motif was different. O-Ranger for Zeo wasn't too big a deal. I mean, it still kind of carried a lot of things they could work with. But Turbo, no matter how you looked at it, was going to be a challenge. And then they add in stuff like Divatox. And credit where credit is due. Goddamn, did she try to make that work. But
one last side note about the '95 movie and that entire season. Actually, I'd like to point out that the mecha in the movie and the first mecha they use in the season, the what do they call it, the Ninja Megazord or whatever, is actually the second mecha that Kaku Ranger uses, the Kakure Daishogun, and then the big, bulky samurai Zord that they have later is actually the first mecha that Kaku Ranger uses, the Muteki Shogun.
Yeah.
They did everything fucking backwards that season.
To be fair, it does work. It does make sense because when you look at it from a Power Rangers perspective, because the Kakure, the Daishogun looks like a regular Megazord, so it makes sense for that to be the starter one, and then the bigger one looks like a bigger upgrade. It looks like a beast, so it would feel like it's a more powerful Megazord. So
but because
I get why
nobody knows that Kaku Ranger was all about ninjas, it didn't. And so the smaller Zord makes more sense for ninjas.
Yeah,
let's be honest. What counts as ninja in the pop culture zeitgeist for the last 40 years has been very loose, and it would be even looser. Need I remind you all of the ancient ninja electric guitar?
Let's just point out here in the chat we did get a mention of the nut shot that saved the world, aka an emergency button just for kicking someone in the nuts or kneeing them in the nuts. Excuse me. Why would you need a button for that? You're already controlling the entire leg assembly, Aisha. You could just do it normally,
right?
It was a comedy moment. It was supposed to be a comedy moment. You don't do a comedy moment like that at your climax unless you're making a joke film. Were you making a joke film, Saban? Is that actually why you did that?
Have we
Holy
not
shit.
made it clear that Fox had no idea what they were doing?
No. It all makes sense. If you put it in the aspect of this entire fucking thing is a satire.
Yeah.
It all makes sense. I'm going to go put on my tinfoil hat now. I'll be back.
But with that, let's get to Turbo.
Before we do that, there's one thing in the comments that I do want to bring up, and that is the fact that it was referred to as Scorpion's Night. I think they're referring to the Scorpion Rain.
Scorpion Rain,
which that was supposed to be the original transition.
No,
that is not the case.
No, that was Amit Bhaumek making basically a fanfic that he somehow convinced people was going to be the transition from Zeo to Turbo. And in fact, he was so convinced of this that when he was later brought into Power Rangers for Wild Force, he used Scorpion Rain as a basis for a lot of the elements of Forever Red.
And admittedly, Amit Bhaumek is I compare Amit Bhaumek to Grant Morrison. In terms of the fact that he's I'm not slamming him as a writer, and he obviously is a more successful writer than I am, but he has something in common with Grant Morrison, the fact that in spite of their talents as writers, they have a bad habit of getting lost in their own heads.
Yeah.
And if you look at the stuff that he's talked about, whether it be Scorpion Rain or I believe it was called Octagon, which was his original pitch for adapting Hurricaneger, and
I
admittedly
thought it was Hexagon.
Yeah, Hexagon.
Yeah,
Hexagon was what.
Which, admittedly, the approach that he had would be certainly an interesting story, but also one that wouldn't be feasible,
especially with what Disney was trying to do at the time.
And that's kind of a thing. He definitely likes putting a lot of old callbacks or references in his stuff, and a lot of those don't exactly work when you try and put them into practice. That's why I compare him to Grant Morrison, because you look at Grant Morrison's work, and he he likes to go really deep into these kind of minutiae with DC, but the version of DC in his head and the version of DC that actually exists aren't exactly lining up.
Yeah. And Matt Bomick is very much in that same vein. But that is a whole other story for another day. Let's talk about the Turbo movie we actually did get.
Yeah.
And the biggest, some of the biggest problems we have, besides a certain actor we'll get to in a moment, is a lot of it just feels forced. You know, when you look at look at this at Zeo. At the end of Zeo, it was made clear that the continuity of Zeo was that the Zeo crystal was continually gaining more power. And they had just conquered King Mondo and the Machine Empire with the help of Trey of Triforia. So they were already as powerful as they could possibly be. And then out of nowhere, for no explicable reason, this new villain shows up. And instead of just, going into keeping the Zeo powers, they just out of nowhere are like, oh, you've built these new turbo powers. Here you go. Here are the keys. Have fun. Wait, what? Why do they need these new powers? The Zeo powers were working just fine. In fact, in the movie, Cat tries to morph into Zero Ranger 1, and it, for whatever reason, it doesn't work. But they don't explain why or what's causing this. No explanation. Just all of a sudden, new powers.
I feel like that was a sign of things to come.
Yeah, that was the first red flag right there. Now, but of course, if we're going to talk about Turbo, we have to address the elephant in the room.
Oh boy, I was holding it off as long as I could. In fact, one could say I've been holding it off since I started GeekWatch, but let's get into it. It's not the first time we've talked about him. It's time to bring him out of the clown cart. Let's talk about Blake.
Wait. You guys know that scene? You know that scene with the seniors, with the senior with the paddles, like gonna whack the new guy. This is pretty much it.
Yeah, in a sense, a little bit of a stretch there, but yeah. Now, first of all, why he was brought in. To be fair, Rocky's original actor, Steve Cardenas, had injury issues and wasn't going to be able to make the filming and was already pretty much leaving the show anyway. So they had a legit reason to change him out. That was understandable. And so Saban decided that because this is still a kid show, they wanted to appeal to an even younger audience, thus brought in a young child actor to become a ranger. Clearly, this failed horribly for different reasons. And the curse of child actors is not immune to Power Rangers. Because in recent years, the actor who played Justin, Blake Foster, has proven himself to be an absolute douche canoe. I mean, he was already kind of ego-headed to begin with, and I've met the man in person. Like, he tries not to, like, when he's at a convention, he tries to be a decent guy. He never done anything with me. Mm-hmm. And in fact, he actually did an interview with me, which is still surprising to this day. But the first time we started to get a hint that Blake Foster may not be as nice a guy as he appears to be was actually not that long ago this year during the airing of Beast Morphers, where Blake went on Instagram and basically trashed and shit on Abraham Rodriguez, who was playing Nate, the Gold Ranger in Beast Morphers, saying that a weenie like that shouldn't be a Sixth Ranger. Shouldn't be the Gold Ranger. It should be a more prestigious actor or prestigious looking character. Needless to say, the internet ratioed the ever-loving shit out of the guy.
And if I recall, we had characters like Nate before who were Sixth Ranger. Cam, for example.
It wasn't just the fact that he was a nerdy guy. It was the fact that he was a short, scrawny-looking nerdy guy. That was what Blake's point was trying to be, was that, yeah, we've had nerdy guys as Rangers. I mean, hell, Billy Cranston, anybody? But having a short, scrawny-looking little guy becoming a Ranger was not his idea of what a good Ranger should be. By the way, hypocrite much?
Well, remember that the sixth Ranger of Beast Morphers was created as a Make-A-Wish for an 8-year-old boy.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, what?
For Beast Morphers?
Xana, explain.
Yes, I have not heard this.
The sixth Ranger for Beast Morphers? Because there's only 5 Rangers in the original show, because there's only 5 Rangers.
Okay.
When you say the sixth Ranger,
I
that
think
only
he's
means
saying
one
that
person.
out of habit.
He is. It'd be Extra Ranger. You're talking Nate Silva.
Well, yeah, Nate Silva. That's what I'm referring to, yes.
I
But
know.
the point I'm making is that by the context of how those kind of things work, by all account, technically there's 2 Six Rangers because the core team and then, Gold and Silver were technically counted as 6 Rangers, even by most standards. That being said,
I think Toei has an official terminology difference between a sixth Ranger, which has to be the sixth Ranger in the series, and quote-unquote extra Rangers, which are any Rangers introduced after the core.
fair enough. We're arguing semantics at the moment. The point is, he trashed on Abraham Rodriguez, and he got ratioed for it. Now, to his credit, as he continued watching the series, summer of last year, he actually went on record and saying, you know what, I've seen it. I take back what I said. I fucked up. He's a good guy. He's a good actor. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he had left things there, I don't think we would be trashing him as hard as we are now. But
no, I would have just picked on him a couple times, and then that'd be the end of it.
Yes, and I even went on Twitter and said, "Hey, dude, you know what? You apologized like a man. I forgive you." I now take back that apology because he has since gone on to make other instances of making a complete ass out of himself. So I say again, child actor curse.
Yeah.
I think the only child actor who hasn't fallen to that curse is couple child actors who didn't follow that curse would have been Macaulay Culkin and Elijah Wood.
I can't speak on Elijah Wood because he really hasn't done a whole lot in the last few years.
Yeah.
But Culkin was under that curse for several years. He's a case of getting out of it.
Yeah, because there was a period in the early 2000s in the 2000s where he hit rock bottom. If you've seen images of him during that time, he looked fucking terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but now he's doing really well again.
Oh yeah, he is. Yeah, absolutely is. Meljo's right. He got out of that. In fact, he recently cameoed in the YouTube video, and he looked fucking amazing. He looked like he could get back on the screen again and probably act his ass off.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't he also in a Google commercial?
Yep.
He was, and there was also him doing a couple cameos. He did one cameo for OSW Review, and he did another one for AVGN.
So yeah. But we're getting off the rails here. So let's talk about the Turbo movie itself and the story of this movie. And right away, there are several problems. And, obviously, after coming off the amazing villains of like Lord Zed, the Machine Empire, and all that, we have Divatox. Now, I want to make this clear. This is nothing against Divatox's actress, Hilary Shepard Turner. She is a freaking amazing woman, and she really loves the fan base. So this is not against any shape or form. But Divatox is a character. What the fuck were they thinking?
2 hour time limits on bombs. Do I need to say anything more than that?
Yeah. And the plot of the Turbo movie felt like a filler episode. Not even just a good epic story episode, a fucking filler episode of the show. Because it's Divatox wanting to kidnap this alien wizard, which, by the way, I use the word wizard very loosely. Larigo is terrible.
He's as much of a wizard as Rincewind.
Yes. No. Rincewind at least looked like a fucking wizard.
And then someone pointed out that he looks like an Ewok left out in the sun.
Yes, that was Linkara, and I fully agree. But why did she do all this? She wanted to resurrect this ancient demon so she could marry it.
That is just stupid. That is just 50 levels of stupid.
Yes.
Okay, so 50 levels of stupid. That's underachieving for this era of Super Sentai.
Yeah. I will say this straight up. As bad as Turbo is, as bad as the movie was, it still leaks better than Car Ranger ever was.
Hey, no. Car Ranger was intentionally satire. Come on now. It's fantastically funny. I love watching Car Ranger for that reason.
Okay, fair point. They went all in on that. But yeah. And
There's
Turbo
one other they went all in on too, and you know which one I'm about to say. Hurricaneger. All of the puns. The pun destruction zone. That is Hurricaneger.
And you know what? Hurricaneger did it right. I fucking love Hurricaneger, okay?
Exactly. I laugh my ass off every freaking episode.
Yeah, Hurricaneger did it right. Car Ranger did not.
I do find it funny that there was that belief that that Car Ranger had saved Super Sentai, when really, if there was anything that saved it from getting killed off, it was Jetman.
Jet the Man, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Jetman was,
who keep making up that excuse anyway?
Well, Jetman was 5 years before Car Rangers, or 5 seasons before Car Rangers.
Yeah.
So.
If you want to make an argument for any season around that particular era that may have saved Super Sentai in any capacity, well, Gigaman, I'd say Mega Ranger too. Mm-hmm. Mega Ranger was good.
Mega Ranger was good, but I really think Gingaman just gripped Japan by storm.
I'll grant you that. I think Mega Ranger did good enough to hold its own, to keep it alive, for Gingaman to come in and just really take it over. But again, getting off the rails here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Car Ranger was actually the show that almost killed Super Sentai. And to be fair, I get why Toei did it, because it was O-Ranger had run into a lot of problems, mainly due to what had happened with the Shinrinki situation and a lot of the terrorist attacks. So they kind of had to tone things down a little bit.
So it was a case of outside forces interfering with stuff we want to do.
For O-Ranger, yes. But yeah, O-Ranger, that was definitely the case. However, Car Ranger was a case of Toei going too far in the opposite direction.
Well, I think part of Car Ranger, because it was a Sentai series that was a parody of Sentai, which was its intention, but also used to be somewhat educational, because they tried to actually introduce things like
traffic
safety laws.
But they also had things like the mysteries of the universe can be found through pachinko.
Oh, god damn it!
And the pizza. Don't forget that.
Oh yeah, it's something that Power Rangers actually adapted, which I will still never understand.
Hey, at least you got a good joke out of it when you interviewed the guy.
Oh yeah, yeah. For those who don't know, I interviewed TJ's actor at Ranger Stop several years back, and I like to have my first question be an icebreaker, a goofy question to kind of just set the mood.
Yep.
So when I did that, I asked him, like, okay, so if you were baked into a giant pizza, what kind of toppings would you like on it? Without missing a beat, this motherfucker looked at me and goes, maybe a blonde, a brunette, a redhead. I broke right there. I'm like, God damn it. It got me hard.
Let's let's just remember though, for all the things Car Ranger may have almost destroyed the Japanese Sentai scene with, it still didn't become an underwhelming mess like Turbo did.
Yeah, that brings us back around to the movie. Like I said, a glorified filler episode, and what a way to go out for Austin St. John and Amy Jo Johnson, bringing them back for that movie. And
I have to wonder if that's the reason it took so long for them to even consider even sniffing the same air as Saban.
Well, Amy Jo Johnson has never come back, and Austin St. John, it took till Hasbro took over for him to finally come back.
Well, and Amy Jo Johnson, I think, just really likes going around busking in Canada at this point.
No, she's off making her own films at this point.
Her main hobby is still going onto the streets of the cities in Canada and singing.
Yep.
That's what she's basically known for these days.
Well, a Michael Bublé?
In a sense. That being said, but yeah.
Also, even though there are like many problems with the Turbo movie, there is still one scene that I find unintentionally funny. The phone call between Divatox and Rita. That is unintentionally funny.
That was good. That was, that's the thing. The Turbo movie had a lot of problems, but I won't say everything about it was shit. It knew what it was, and it had a little fun with it. And I think that was one of the best scenes in the movie was, Divatox out of desperation calls up Rita, and Rita just tells her, if I had actually knew how to defeat the Power Rangers, you think I'd be lying here listening to this? Holds the phone over a snoring Zed. But that also brings up a continuity flub with that movie and the series later on. Because at the end of Zeo, Zed basically said he was back in the game. The Rangers had defeated the Machine Empire in battle, but it was Rita and Zed that finished the job. Why aren't they the ones in there kicking ass?
They finally wanted to get beyond, the evil that they had been carrying with them for years.
And they apparently went off and had a kid together, as we would later find out in another series.
Let's not talk about that.
No, I'm pretending that doesn't exist.
Hey.
I feel like I shouldn't ask.
Have you never seen Once a Ranger from Operation Overdrive?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you something that is probably going to kill my credibility with the Ranger side of things. Right around the end of Lost Galaxy, I stopped watching until SPD.
No bully.
No shame, no blame. But yeah, in the Operation Overdrive episode, Once a Ranger, which, by the way, Operation Overdrive, absolute worst season of the Power Rangers franchise.
And then I stopped watching again after that until... Nope, I just stopped watching after SPD. I haven't watched a single... I've watched all the Sentai from Kaku Ranger up to current, but I haven't watched anything past SPD.
Okay, well, the point I'm getting at is that in the Operation Overdrive crossover episode, Once a Ranger, which brought back one Mighty Morphin Ranger and then the past 4 seasons of one Ranger from the past 4 seasons, the main villain of that was a character named Thrax, who claimed to be the son of Rita and Zed. And they tried to make it look like a son of Zed because it had the muscular look and everything. But you know what? While we continue on, I'm going to grab an image of this, and I want you to see exactly why this didn't work.
Oh boy, I know where this is going.
So do I, and I'm scared.
I feel bad now because they involved Johnny Young Bosch and Matt Austin in this episode. Looking on the Ranger wiki.
You are correct.
That just makes me want to cry.
Oh, it gets better. I introduce you to Thrax. Check the council.
I mean, it looks like they just kit bashed a couple of billing things together in Zed's old suit.
Yeah, and generic gravelly voice for his voice.
Does that surprise no one?
Nope.
Because
I blame Kalish.
Yeah,
I
this was
think-
during the Kalish era.
I think the following gift pretty much did it all for.
Anyway, that being said, getting back to Turbo here, the few things the movie did do right was, one, they used the actual suits from Car Ranger for the movie. They didn't try to make new suits for this one. The only movie that pulled that off. Same with the Megazord. I believe they did make new footage for the Megazord, but it was the actual Turbo Megazord.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
So it was able to fit in line with the series without too much trouble, but that's about as good as that got.
And when it came to I'd say the big reason why I think Turbo as a film was going to be a doomed prospect is, for all intents, you're trying to do a film as a pilot for a series does not and never has worked,
No.
because you end up pissing off two kinds of audiences. You're not giving a proper conclusion for the people who are just watching the movie, and the people who are going to be watching the show are going to be like, what the fuck is going on? So you're in a worst of both worlds situation.
Yeah. Again, with all of the continuity flubs this movie had, hardcore fans were like, this is how we're continuing things. Again, all that setup with Zed and Rita, no payoff. And again, new powers out of nowhere. And then for casual audiences who don't watch Power Rangers as hard as the rest of us, they're probably sitting there going, okay, what is going on here? What's with all this other stuff going on? Why, what am I, you feel like you have to know the series to watch this movie. And that's never a good thing, especially since by this time, ratings for Power Rangers was already starting to decline.
Mm-hmm.
and I think the big thing that they've been doing wrong overall with even at this point in the movies is they didn't pick up anything from their people that they were sourcing from. Toei has never, as far as I'm aware, tried to make their movies for their Sentai or for Kamen Rider or any other Tokusatsu property a standalone or some sort of pilot. It's a tie-in, and it's almost always an optional tie-in that, other than maybe a power-up that they got in the movie, is immaterial to the actual plot. One that I can think of where what they got in the movie was material was Shinkenger with the Kyoryumaru disc, but that's a different issue entirely.
Mm-hmm.
These two from 95 and 97 tried to either introduce a new season and new powers, or introduce an entirely new concept. Because the change to Turbo is, for all intents and purposes, a new concept. It's not the same concept we've been having going through Mighty Morphin and Zeo.
And when it comes to whenever Sentai does a film, and I'm trying to think about when this particular trend started, but their films have been, first off, they usually go no more than 30 minutes, but they're also the opening act to a Kamen Rider film, and I'm trying to think about when that trend started, where you basically had a superhero time double feature.
I, the paired Geki Joban releases, I think, were probably back around.
Slick Rick in the chat says Shinkenger.
I thought they did one even for Deca Ranger though, and Bokenger as well. Shinkenger is where it really got big. Yeah, Shinkenger is where you started to see it basically every season at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to be fair, some of those tie-in, some of the dual feature movies are fantastic. I will never ever forget the Kyoryuger tie-in. That was fantastic.
But even with that, there's still the notion within those films is that they're meant to be one and dones. The same way that when you see a Geki Joban or the movie or what have you with a anime that's running, it's ultimately a side story that isn't going to interfere too much with continuity.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Most Geki Joban are very much, this is something we're doing to hype stuff up, usually during the summer. It's the biggest release time for most of the Sentai and most of the Kamen Rider series have been summer Geki Joban.
Yes.
And again, looking at what I mentioned earlier with Kyoryuger, they actually had quite a few crossovers. I mean, we had I don't know how much people rage or loved this Superhero Tyson Z, which was the Kamen Rider Super Sentai and Space Sheriff crossover.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, probably the one decent Tyson movie of the whole bunch.
Yeah, and then they had their standalone Gaburincho of music. They had the crossover between previous and current, the Go Busters and Kyoryuger, or current, yeah, and then they got a 100 years after, just like I believe Hoodie Kanger eventually got their 10 years after.
Yeah, the Kyoryuger thing was a V cinema that was designed to kind of act as an end of the series, kind of showing how things would progress in the future.
It wasn't that good.
It was funny. It was a nice little funny thing, but it was really them just capitalizing off of Hoodie Kanger's release of the 10 years after movie.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of as a nod and homage and joke all at once.
Yeah.
But the movies that they do release, the standalones, the ones that are just the Sentai, so in this case Gaburincho of music, was not very long, and as you pointed out, they're more like episode length. And they also, you can place them between episodes, but again, it doesn't impact most plot.
Mm-hmm.
When I do get to Japan, I may have to try that out. That and watch an anime movie.
Just don't bring any of us with you because I'm pretty sure I'll be doing I'm pretty sure I'll be doing I'm pretty sure I'll be doing the Burger Tower to see if I can actually finish that.
No,
off in 30 minutes.
I'm going. I'm going with a family, with a friend of my mom and dad, and my friend too.
You don't know a joke if it hit you in the face.
I am scared.
Yeah, I don't really know the concept of joking that well.
I am scared.
But then of course a few years ago we would have an attempt at a quote unquote retelling / reboot of the original MMPR with the Lionsgate movie. You know, just trying to retell the origin story. And one thing I'll get out of the bat right now. The suits, I did not care for them when I saw them in stills. They look slightly better in motion.
Yeah.
The-
thing,
Go ahead, Jason.
the behind the scenes of this is that once Saban regained the rights to Power Rangers, they set out to try to recapture the zeitgeist of Power Rangers' early success. They wanted to make it feel like the old days. They wanted to turn it into another media empire. And like when I remember when they were teasing this back in the day, and they were like trying to do everything, especially because, at the time they were announcing this stuff, the anniversary of Power Rangers was coming up. And of course that led to Megaforce, but we won't be talking about Megaforce tonight. Thank you.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, right. But one of the things
your mentions of Megaforce just remind me that 45th anniversary Sentai is coming up. And Zenkaiger, I don't know how to feel about Zenkaiger.
Trust me, I know how you feel on that. But let's save that.
It's nice to see Mach get some work.
Anyway. But they were already teasing. They said from the outset that one of their goals was to make a movie, and eventually they did with the help of Lionsgate. It took a little longer than I think even they planned for, and missed the anniversary like they had planned, but they got it out.
Mm-hmm.
But
they missed it by how many years?
Couple of years. It wasn't like super long, but it was a few years off. But and make right off the bat, I think the smart move was to not base it on the current series, because I think a lot of us were worried they were going to try to do that. But they, yes, MMPR is the one that everyone remembers, and I hate that sometimes. MMPR purists are a thing, and they are annoying, and I can't stand them. But if you're gonna,
exists in every hobby, those shades.
That's very true. That's very true. But
Look,
I'm still gonna
I think I've made it very clear that I am as anti-grog as it gets.
Yeah. That being said, going to MMPR for the storyline made the most sense, because it was going to appeal to the largest audience. Everyone remembers MMPR. Everyone remembers those names, those characters. That was the right move to go. And to their credit, one of the things I think they really think they got right off the bat is they didn't try to go one for one MMPR. They tried to change things up. They changed how these characters acted. They were still somewhat based on it, but Billy Cranston was still the nerdy kid, but they kind of threw an autistic twist on it, which I thought was good. And they didn't make them cookie cutter goody goods, which was a big thing.
That was good, but the one of the steps that they took that was probably a good step considering current year -4 was they didn't color code the Rangers either.
Yeah, that was a big thing
our Yellow Ranger was not Asian, our Black Ranger was not African American.
Yeah, they made sure to change that out.
And
they didn't.
As much as that's been made into a joke over the years, I think it's been well established by this point that whole thing was kind of an accident.
Yeah, it was an accident.
Yeah, the producers have gone on record and saying they did not honestly realize what they had done until after they had started filming, and they were like, "Oh shit!"
Luckily,
they knew that was trouble.
Luckily, it didn't cause as much trouble as it could have. That was actually pretty good. But
I think, mainly
Lionsgate did the right thing of avoiding that from the very beginning.
Yeah, because in this day and age, that would have caused some controversy.
Oh, that would have been cancel culture all up their ass.
Yes, it would have. So they dodged that bullet, though they ended up still having some controversy when there was the implication that the Yellow Ranger might be a lesbian.
Well, when it came to that, honestly, I was pissed off when a bunch of pundits decided to jump on that, because in the actual story, it's not like it isn't made as big a deal as certain pundits were making it. Like, they were making it as if it was shown in bright fucking print, when really it's brought up only once, and during a time where bringing it up would actually make sense.
Because they're all teenagers. Yeah,
and plus, it wasn't ever outright stated. It was, it was implied. heavily implied, but she never outright stated what she was. If anything, I'd say she was bi, but that's the best. That was my perspective on the whole thing. It's not the actual canon story there.
Well, and again, the biggest thing there is that sort of exploration, and it was a very, very, very mild exploration of developing children, well, in this case, teenagers, and their sexualities. Made, as you said, made sense in the discussion at that point. There was no controversy. As we all know, it was a non-controversy.
Yeah. But it was the little things like that. But the thing I think I want to express is that this was the one series that clearly had at least the creators had some understanding of the franchise. A lot of the elements of that movie felt like modernizations of classic concept. Rita was an evil witch from an evil alien witch. Zordon was another alien protector. You had all of the elements in place there. Everything made sense. The characters acted very much like they would have if they were real teenagers with the same traits. Kimberly, while not a full gymnast, definitely had a very Valley Girl-esque attitude towards her, just a lot more rebellious. Jason was a leader. Zach was, he wasn't a hip-hop guy, but he definitely had that kind of attitude to him. Zach, I think, was actually the most changed character of the whole bunch.
Yeah.
Billy was the nerd, and again, they added an autistic twist, which I think was genius doing that. I think that worked really well.
Not only that, but they did it smartly, where he never outright he doesn't like the previous rant. He doesn't outright say that he is. He says he's on a spectrum, and
yeah.
Those who are in the know about the matter would be able to draw two and two together. But it's not like he had the autism signal in the sky or something like that.
Yeah, but what I also liked is that they treated it naturally. They didn't make him completely inept. It's just that he had trouble with certain things, and it was a part of his character for that. But they did it naturally, and it didn't feel forced.
That said, there is one thing that, if by some miracle I'm able to have one of the writers for the movie on the show, I would end up asking them this question: was The Breakfast Club one of your major influences?
Oh, yeah. It's so fucking blatant with how it felt like that when, like, the detention thing and all of them just happened to be in detention, and, all the rebelliousness and all of them being very different types of rebellious characters. It fits so perfectly.
Now, I'm not doing that as a shaming thing. I do want to make that clear. And it's a smart way to get these people who clearly have different backgrounds in the same vicinity. And in this context, it provides a good means of doing a hero's journey kind of thing.
Yeah.
That being said, I know some people were doing the whole were joking about why no Bulk and Skull, but really, they wouldn't have fit.
The thing is, with Bulk and Skull, they worked in the original MMPR because of, like I said earlier, the Rangers were cookie cutter goody goods. So having a bully type character like Bulk and Skull made a good counterbalance to that. It added some bit of balance to the group. Here, the teens were already rebellious. They were already had an attitude to them. They were truly teenagers with attitude in this case. So having Bulk and Skull would have felt like excessive.
Heck, in the beginning of the movie, Jason had the ankle thing. Remember?
Yeah. In the beginning of the movie, Jason gets arrested for basically bringing a cow or a bull into the freaking locker room. It was a cow. It was a cow. Brings a cow into the locker room and wrecks up the place. Of course, so yeah, he's already established as a troublemaker. They didn't need Bulk and Skull for that.
Mm-hmm. And through the whole thing, the only thing that I'd say was a bit of a falter was two things. One, um, it could be argued that the whole training them to become what they would went a little bit longer than it should have.
Yeah, I can see that.
And two, doing the whole thing of is Zordon not keeping secrets or not, which I felt was an unnecessary red herring, given the situation.
Yeah, that would have been something better saved for a sequel, not for the main movie, because I mean, they already had the whole idea of he wanted to be free. He wanted to get out of that prison he was trapped in.
Mm-hmm.
That alone was enough to carry the tension of the movie. They didn't need to have the whole secret thing.
Yeah.
But there is also one good thing out of the training montage.
But
Alpha 5 was doing his inner Lord Popo.
Oh, Alpha 5. I loved how they did Alpha in this movie. Instead of him just being a quirky robot with a lot of energy, they made him into a fucking troll.
yes. Although I will admit that the scene that ended up making me chuckle the most was during the first round of training, where it's a case of, and it's not real, it's just a hologram. Smack. That's one badass hologram.
That and Alpha 5 will fuck you up when you see that his debut in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Like, again, that it's, I'd say I do distinctly remember hearing multiple accounts in the rumor mill and the usual sites that I was going through, that they, and this may have been their fatal flaw. They want for context. Let me reel myself in. Around that time, there was that phase where everybody and their brother's baby's mama wanted to do some sort of cinematic universe, and there were talks rumored to come from Saban that they wanted to do the same thing, and I think in doing that it was a case of eyes bigger than the stomach.
Yeah.
Now granted, there was that non-story about having Tommy be a girl for a sequel, which I know that there was talk that several actors would be on board with that, but let's be honest, that would never fly.
Yeah.
So while if you tried to say that it was Tommy being replaced as a girl, yeah, it would never fly. I think making a Sixth Ranger that is a girl would fly, because we've already changed a lot about what MMPR was, even with that 2017 movie. You would have to not even use a name that begins with T, because that would be too much of a reminder for the purists. But I definitely think you could get away with a female Sixth Ranger.
It
would have been a struggle.
It's not going to be easy. I'm going to make that clear.
Yeah.
But the reason why I was against it is a case of, I don't disagree with the words. I only disagree with the intent. Is the way I put it.
Yeah. And the other problem with trying to do that is that, unfortunately, they would have shot themselves in the foot even trying, because, as some of you might recall, in the movie, Jason David Frank and Amy Jo Johnson actually cameoed at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as part of the people staring at the fight.
Yeah, so people seeing the movie, any Power Rangers fan who was watching the movie would see those two and like, oh, look, the original Tommy and Kimberly are here. So now they've got that idea of their heads of Tommy Oliver being in there. And so when spoiler alert, in the after credits scene, they tease that, an Oliver was going to be in a sequel. They sequel baited that, which hindsight really fucking funny.
Look, whenever I feel like there should be an unwritten rule to stop sequel baiting because you're only tempting fate.
And every
Oh.
fucking time.
Especially Paul Anderson. And so
God, don't. Let's not get into that. Anyway, so yeah, having those two things in the same movie, nobody would have been comfortable with them changing that out.
Mhm.
I'll tell you that if you had left JDF out, one, that also wouldn't have been a good idea because everyone wanted to see that. And two, having him in there means that if they see a Green Ranger getting teased, it's going to be Tommy Oliver. They've already now set that up. So they were kind of caught between a rock and a hard place with that idea.
I think this is why I know that a lot of people in Hollywood don't understand how guns work, but this is a point where people should understand the value of Chekhov's gun. Also, I know people made a meme out of the whole Krispy Kreme thing. I get the feeling that was a case of, hey, Krispy Kreme's paying us, so we got to do this. You know, kind of like the whole Dr. Pepper thing with Godzilla 85.
Yeah, it was very clear that's what that was going on with that. That's why it never bothered me. I find it funny, especially when they made it a plot point.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't hold it against the movie because I get right away. It's like, okay, Krispy Kreme probably sponsored this. They probably helped pay for it. They had to promote it somehow, and trying to do it any other way would have felt even more forced than this was. So it's like, all right, you get a pass.
This was the least bad scenario.
Yeah.
Or to put it another way, they were gonna have to take a bullets, and they'd rather lose a toe than lose a foot.
Exactly.
But even with that, I'd say that it may have been a blessing in disguise that a sequel didn't happen, because this whole format of doing Breakfast Club isn't exactly sustainable. That's why you never saw a sequel to The Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
Any sequel to The Breakfast Club wouldn't have been as interesting as The Breakfast Club because you wouldn't have had the same conflict.
Yeah, you would have to have found new ways to keep them in those personalities without any of the growth, and that's a problem. And the same kind of would have held true here. I mean, granted, you could probably make this work in this scenario, but it would have been a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I wanted to point out, and this is something I think a lot of fans, a lot of people may not have noticed, is I said earlier that the people who made this movie understood the franchise because there were little things throughout the movie, little nods to the franchise as a whole beyond just MMPR. I remember watching this in theaters, and some of the street signs were actually references to other cities in the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I thought that was really cool that they actually added that in. Again, it's the thing is, it doesn't affect the movie, it doesn't affect the story, but for fans, it's that nice little thing of, yeah, we're with you, we're fans, we get it. Here's a little thing that's just reminded, yeah, we're on the same page.
In a weird way, that kind of reminds me of the Carl Urban Dread movie, which had a lot of those inside references.
Yeah. Having those references is fine as long as it doesn't impact the plot. And that was what we got here. A lot of the little things you would see were things that if you're not a fan, they just go right on by and you don't miss anything. If you're a fan, you see those and you're like, oh, cool.
Yeah. Now, when it came to the suit design, I don't think I'm the only one who's in the mindset of it looked better in motion than it did in stills.
Yeah.
And
of course,
I think Easy made an Iron Man joke on Twitter about the whole thing.
Who didn't? Like those you look at that thing and you're like, did you guys rate Tony Stark's closet or something?
Yeah. The reason why I say it looks better in motion is because of the fact that when it's in motion, it's very clear that it's meant to look like crystalline. It's meant to look like a big ass crystal, which, given the fact that the coins aren't flat coins in this case, certainly fits.
So, just as an aside to Shade's references to the extra references in the movie, actually, I just pulled up a couple of the direct references. Ocean Bluff Road was the reference to Ocean Bluff. And Sam Scott even mentions a place called Mariner Bay and another one called Reefside, references to Lightspeed Rescue and Dino Thunder, respectively.
Yeah. Again, they're little things that for non fans, they're just things. They don't affect anything. But for hardcore fans like myself who know what those are references to, it's just like, ooh, nice.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes I think part of the other reason that it didn't work out, at least when it came to this film, is, to be quite honest, I think around that time we were starting to see the first inklings of superhero fatigue.
Yeah. If they had put this out early enough around the time of Megaforce, they probably would have had a better luck, because that was at the peak of the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
And, the first Avengers movie and everything like that was pretty much out at that point. And that's when everyone was on that board. They'd hit right then and there, they probably would have done well. But this was the time, I think this was after Age of Ultron. So already things were starting to kind of taper a little bit.
Before Infinity War.
Yeah.
Infinity War and Endgame were blips, but the problem is the fatigue had already started to set in by that point, especially with how ubiquitous a lot of those interpretations were. And we talked about that ubiquity last week when it came to the whole bridging the gap.
Yeah. Oh, another thing we forgot to bring up in regards to not only this movie but the 95 movie is the soundtrack. Because both of these had interesting soundtracks. The 95 movie, that's where the money went.
Yeah. The 95 movie's soundtrack was, if I'm going to be honest, the epitome of 90s radical anti-establishment kids music.
Yeah, I mean, obviously everyone remembers, when you think of the Power Rangers movie, 95 movie, you think of Trouble from this one. I wouldn't even call it a one-hit wonder. It was a no-hit wonder group, because nobody remembers that band.
Who?
Exactly.
Also, that might have also been the fact because I was born in late '96.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was the title song. I mean, they even promoted that song on the show and during the showtime to try to ramp up the movie. Nobody knew who these guys were, and nobody remembers them afterwards. But you look at the rest of the soundtrack. You've got groups like Van Halen. They might be giants. Freaking Red Hot Chili Peppers going on. And remixes of songs like Kung Fu Fighting and Power, which were big things. And then, of course, the awesome orchestrated version of the main theme, which was one of the best versions of the song ever made, to the point, and this is the nice segue here, that they used that particular version of the song in the 2017 movie. It was a very brief moment, but right when they call the Zords out, you hear for a couple seconds of the chorus of that particular version, and again, for hardcore fans, it's like, oh my god moment.
Mm-hmm.
But
I always thought they used the Masaki Endo version.
No, they used the orchestrated version. I remember it very vividly. The 2017 version had a couple of good songs, but the title song was a Kanye West song.
And to be honest, I get the pun by using Power, but that has no business here.
No, it did not work. It did not work at all.
If I can be perfectly honest, I feel like that song has been overused in a lot of movie trailers.
That didn't help things either.
Let's just remember that the best use of Kanye West's power was in Saints Row the Third. A game that is essentially a parody of GTA at this point.
Yes.
And that's the best use of that song. It was never going to work once it had that sort of quote pedigree unquote.
Yeah. Now, Voice in the chat also brings up the idea that another issue with using Go-Go Power Rangers during the for the movie was that at that time, Go-Go Power Rangers for hardcore fans had been over fucking used. Samurai, Megaforce, and to some extent Dino Charge used the shit out of that chorus. So for us, it was like, oh, here we go again. I give it a pass here because A, this is an MMPR movie, so okay, yeah, you kind of have to use Go-Go Power Rangers somewhere in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And two, you know, it was a good use for it for that moment. It wasn't the opening. You weren't going to be hearing it 50 times. They used it 5 seconds at the climax of the movie. I'm okay with that.
I mean, for the purists, if it hadn't been in there, that would have been a cardinal sin.
Yeah, exactly. There's that too.
And even for the people who aren't purists, or heck, don't even have skin in the game, may not even have history in the game, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Go-Go Power Rangers theme is, as you pointed out, reinterpreted, redone, and played to death to the point that people who have never seen the shows know the song. That is a more ubiquitous theme song could not be found among Japanese adapted properties besides maybe the Pokemon original opening.
Yeah.
And go figure, both are from the same era. The thing I think is really funny about the constant reinterpretations of Go-Go Power Rangers is, while it may have been done to death and back, you can find some real gems among some much smaller composers and arrangers. So I'm glad that they took the chance to not use a stock version or even a version close to stock, and were instead using an orchestrated version from previous works.
Yeah.
And even then, only a small snippet of it.
Yeah, though I would not have complained if they had found a way to get Ron Wasserman's version back in there. But considering the relationship they've had with him over the years, I don't think that was ever going to happen.
Mm-mm.
I still, when you bring up Ron Wasserman, I still remember the part of his interview that I love most, when talking about the White Ranger theme. Would you ever write that theme again? He's like, yeah, probably not. That just the words there are just awkward enough that if you miss one, you've got a lawsuit on your hands.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you seen the interview that we did with him?
I don't think I did. No.
I will grab a link for you on that.
We'll watch it sometime.
Yeah, because we had the chance to talk with him, and let's just say he's not happy with the current composer of Power Rangers right now.
It wouldn't surprise me.
It also wouldn't surprise me if it was a case of there were I'll have to re-listen to that, but I got the vibe that if it weren't for the fact that he's in a certain position, he probably would have been a lot more colorful.
Oh, we told him to go all out on our end.
Well, you can tell somebody to go all out, but even to an extent, they will be holding back somewhat.
So it is going to be publicly available.
There's a difference between someone going all out in that manner and going all out when they've already had the nectar of the gods a few times.
Mm.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from, Mildra.
Well, of course you
Oh,
can because
speaking of,
you guys know I am an asshole.
speaking.
That's why I'm getting a.
Yeah,
Okay, we're
that's
back.
what I was wondering.
I was getting
Alright.
a loading circle. Yeah.
Sorry about that, folks. OBS decided to fuck with me, and I'm going to have to put in a part 1 and part 2 when we're done tonight.
Lovely.
They.
That being said, as I was saying, when it came to the actual Zords, that's where I have to draw a little debate. I mean, this is where I think I get the sense that they were trying to take some cues from the Michael Bay Transformers movies.
Oh yeah,
I just
against my better judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the Zord is lackluster to say the least.
Looks like a mess.
I think the do you remember when I said before that that among certain designers there seems to be this idea that we need to justify the design by making it as complicated as possible. This is emblematic of that. The individual ones didn't look too terrible. The combination of them looked like a breeze would tilt the fucking thing over
Yeah.
because there's just too many parts. And while I was fine with the suits when they were in motion, I was much less so with this because of the fact that when you look at good design, even highly detailed designs, there will always be some sort of simple motif that you can draw your eyes to. Whether it be a color, whether it be a shape, what have you. And as a case in point, you can do if I do 3 diamonds against a different colored background, you're gonna immediately think of the MMPR suits. If when it came to the OG Megazord design, one of the big things you're probably gonna think of is the design of the chest plate and go from there.
To give you an idea, I'm going to post something in council because I found out that a while back they added the 2017 Megazord to Power Rangers Legacy Wars, which already had the original. And for their teaser screenshot, they basically gave us a perfect comparison.
Oh Jesus!
All right, let's see what we've got here. Yeah, the one that we ended up getting there doesn't have, for starters, doesn't have enough of a color balance. Second off, looks like something I would see on ArtStation. And third off, I take it back. I don't think they were trying to draw from. I think they were trying to draw from Pacific Rim with that design.
Yeah, that's probably a better comparison, honestly. And this is actually a simplified version of the design. That's not even how it actually looks.
Yeah, but again, remember, as Monk just pointed out, there wasn't enough of a color balance. The colors never popped out like that in the movie. Never.
No.
You looked at it, you saw some muted colors, and then everything else was just monochrome.
Yeah, let me put this in here. Here's what it actually looks like in the movie.
Yeah, it does not look good.
That looks like a shitty version of The Fallen.
Right? Now we could definitely look at the Transformers comparison because
also,
I can't unsee that now.
Also, Mildred, the 2 most signifying identifiers for the original Megazord is the chest that looks like teeth, yes, and the horns on the head.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 things everyone focuses on.
But the point is, you look at those, you look at those, and if you look at them in isolation, you're immediately gonna connect the dots.
Exactly.
And to its credit, like as far as the horns go, the 2017 version tried to add those, but because of how complex the overall design ends up being, they don't stand out near as much anymore compared to all the other shit this thing's got on it.
First off, designers everywhere, this is why you employ the KISS method. Second off, you know how I've had a mantra for years that believability is more important than realism. I feel like a lot of designers and a lot of people commissioning those designers need to have that lesson. Because this is the kind of design that I could very easily see it being born from the notion of, we need to make it realistic. Nobody's gonna buy the initial design. We need to make it look like a design that they could reasonably think is real. The problem with doing that is that you end up making designs that are impractical for complete other reasons. This is the reason why a big whipping boy for this sort of thing will always be for me the suit designs that you see in the Nolan Batman trilogy and in Arkham Knight.
Yeah.
The thing that I think a lot of people tend to forget when it comes to filmmaking and designs like this is that we have suspension of disbelief.
We've had suspension of disbelief from the beginning when they get fucking superpowers from an alien goddamn crystal.
Exactly. Like we're already suspending our disbelief. Having when you looked at the original Megazord, the original Daisugen design, it's unrealistic, but we're already suspending our disbelief that a robot like that could move the way it does, even though it's stiff as a fucking board.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's also because in the original Two Ranger, we're dealing with people who are essentially suspended for 65 million years.
Yeah,
have dinosaur magic.
Yeah,
and
you're already
and the fact that the giant robot itself is a freaking god.
Yeah, so you're already suspending your disbelief. You can get away with a design like that, with like the original Daisugen, and go, okay, I could see that. Obviously it's not going to be realistic looking, but I could see him having something like that. But when you have it so complex like this, like the 2017 movie, you're now having to suspend so much disbelief that anyone could pilot something like that it breaks it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually probably about to piss off Monk with this next line of thinking. A comment in the chat has actually led me to a new line of thought about where the inspiration for the 2017 Zord comes from. Comment specifically, an alien or otherworldly version of the basic Zords. I took that in mind and I looked at it. I'm like, oh, so it's just a giant Guyver the bio-boosted armor. It's Guyver.
Oh my
Gigantic.
god!
It's Guyver Gigantic, guys.
I'd say that actually makes sense for suit designs, but for the Megazord, not so much.
No, if you've ever seen Guyver
No. Shades.
Yes.
I hate to admit it. I really, really, really fucking hate to admit it, but he has a point. As somebody who's seen the myriad of live action and animated interpretations of Guyver, which, by the way, go watch Dark Hero just so you can see a young Solid Snake.
David Hayter.
This does very much look like Guyver Gigantic. I can't fucking unsee it, and because of that, somebody get me my book.
Is it for me or for them? That's my question at this point.
Yes.
That's a good question. The answer is yes.
This is going in the Book of Grudges.
But Shades, the reason I say Guyver Gigantic is because Guyver Gigantic took the normal Guyver, combined it with a literal core from one of the alien ships to turn it into a gigantic version of Guyver that can, do gigantic versions of what Guyver does best: kill other aliens.
Yeah. I'm going to post an image of Guyver Gigantic in the council for reference's sake, so you can see where he's going from this.
Okay, you win. I'm done. I'm out. I'm out. Fuck.
A Bio Guyver Shin Dragon Zord? No, you take that back! You take that blasphemy back, chat!
Oh, good lord! You started that technically.
You open Pandora's box.
But my name's not Pandora. It has to be Xanatrix's box at this point.
Oh, whatever.
You got where we're going with that.
I know. I'm just saying that I'm claiming ownership. Pandora needs to pay me 10%.
Jesus Christ.
How do you deal with this guy, Mildra?
Same way I deal with the rest of you.
Exactly.
Why do you think I drink so much?
Yeah, Kara, you have no fucking room to talk.
Mm-hmm.
True. True.
Moving on.
Yeah, moving right along. Now, this brings us dealing with the reason why I wanted to focus on each of these movies is the fact that we have three different types of setups that didn't work in one form or another. The first one is a case of taking what was already established in the TV show. The second was trying to set up things for the TV show, and the third was trying to be on its own reboot. And oddly enough, when it came to doing this sort of on its own reboot, we saw this kind of thing a few years ago in Japan with a different long-running tokusatsu franchise. Who here has seen Kamen Rider the First?
I've
seen enough of it to know
All of
the deal.
us, I think, at this point.
Mm-hmm. Which, oddly enough, that was the thing that I was able to use to get certain people in the temple back into tokusatsu.
Really?
Makes sense.
Oh.
Kamen Rider the First wasn't bad.
No, it was a faithful recreation of the storyline with a more modernized, more darker setting.
Mm-hmm.
And,
next,
you know,
however, is the problem of too many cooks in the kitchen.
Yeah.
But
do we need to bring up who the head writer was for that movie?
No,
I would,
but I think he's too busy trying to figure out how he can have a bunch of models go swimming.
But the thing is the question I think we have to ask ourselves is this: could we take elements from all three of these movies and add a few other things to make a legit good Power Rangers theatrical film?
Now, this is where I'm going to be venturing from popular assumptions. I don't think that the elements would lend themselves well to a standalone film. In this regard, I'm actually more. The more I think about it, the more I'm in favor of what JDF was suggesting, even if he didn't completely go through the implications, and that is a Netflix series that only goes, like, say, 12 episodes at most.
And each one is an hour long.
Yes.
Yeah. So the miniseries approach.
Yeah.
The miniseries, or if you prefer, the season 1 Amazons approach.
Yeah. And
I love Amazons.
here's where I think the story should go. Now, I'm not going to suggest Shattered Grid before anyone even brings it up.
No,
But
Shattered Grid would have way too much baggage to even try and animate. And to be honest, whenever people have brought up the idea of adapting Shattered Grid to animation or to live action, I have shot it down with prejudice, because I am firmly of the belief that is a story that can only work as a comic. If you try and if you try and adapt that particular story into something outside of a comic, you're kneecapping it.
Yeah. Now, that being said, I'm not against the idea of using the previous storyline of the Boom Studios comics as a starting point. Have the first episode kind of be an origin story,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of adapt that the early Lord Draken storyline, and maybe go in a different direction with that. That I think is feasible.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to creating a Power Rangers movie, and I'm going to go with the limitation that since the three things we've talked about are feature films,
Mm-hmm.
that's the limitation I'm going to work with here. I don't believe that under that framework, just as a feature film, you can create as you said, a standalone movie. It would need to be a tie-in of some sort. There's just no other way. It has to have the support from something that's already ongoing, because otherwise you're rushing an entire story that is supposed to take place over a season into something that's at most 2.5 hours long.
While you are correct with that, Xanatrix, I'd like to offer a counter argument on the idea that creates an entirely different problem, especially in this day and age. Because by doing that, you then run into the problem of how do you appeal to a casual audience? Because if you're going to put the money in to make a feature film, you have to be willing to approach the general audiences. And if you're doing it from an already established storyline, a lot of casual fans are not going to be able to watch it, since they will have no fucking idea what's going on.
And in that case, you take the page from the Geki Jobans. It's a plot all involved in itself. The only thing you have is the fact that it does come from a show that's currently airing, and that its plot is not going to affect the show, and the show's plot only affects it in so much as you would need to watch the show to get a little bit of the background knowledge.
And this is where cultural differences kick our ass, because for Japan, while it has declined over the years, Super Sentai is a very well-established franchise that pretty much everyone in Japan knows of it and knows what it is. They know what to expect going in.
Parents watching their children all the time. Yes,
exactly. But
I don't mean to interrupt, guys. I'm starting to fade here.
All right.
See you guys whenever.
Yep.
Good night, Kira.
But with Power Rangers in America, that's a very different story. There's a much larger audience to have to tap into, and a lot of parents and a lot of kids don't watch Power Rangers the same way as big of an institution in Japan. So to try to reach out to that audience is going to be that much harder.
And
my counter when it comes to this is when writing something like this, don't write it. And I think this is a trap that all three of these movies have fallen into. Don't write it like you're writing an episode of any of the TV series. Especially, and this is also the reason why I suggested some sort of miniseries like approach, because with a lot of those sort of miniseries, especially since that particular serialization type wave has really taken hold in the TV or film watching zeitgeist over the last decade. You have multiple angles and multiple stories that are converging or separating at different intervals. You look at okay, this is a really bad example because of how it ended up ending, but you look at all the different characters and stories in Game of Thrones, or in Into the Badlands, or even the better times with Walking Dead, and so on. And when I mentioned a miniseries, I was specifically using that as my particular template, where you have a cast of significant size that ultimately has their own has multiple stories running through it, instead of just one one story the way you would for a for a weekly TV series. Since
So
you,
a better example then would probably have been, as much as I hate to say it, because I don't think any film version of this particular series has ever captured it correctly, but the sci-fi miniseries for Dune.
yeah, and admittedly, the sci-fi miniseries is slightly better than the movie, just having the issue of not having much of a budget. Um, and once again, I wish all the luck to the people
New,
new one, because Lord knows they're gonna need it.
even Dave, even oh, what was his?
Daniel Villeneuve.
Yeah, I think so.
Mhm.
But everybody involved with the original David Lynch project that has been interviewed about the new project has A, wished them luck, and B, said it's gonna be hard because with how dense Dune is, it's just not something that translates well to film in certain ways.
Yeah, and I'd I will admit that if I was directing if I was directing or producing this sort of quote unquote mini series, I know that some people would say do it animated. Animation is a lot more expensive than people think it is. Like a single episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, on the cheap end of things, would still cost at least $1 million. This is the reason why a lot of anime studios like to do so many shortcuts and then save the bulk of the budget for Sakuga.
That's actually why animation shortcuts became a thing in the first place. Because whereas uh, a cartoon or even live action television episode in the US will cost anywhere between $1 to $3 million per episode, a typical season of anime is $1 to $3 million for the season.
Yeah, and that's the reason. As much as I used to harp on reused animation cells and the like when I was younger, I don't do that anymore. It's fun. It's funny when it gets real shameless, and I will continue to pick on Sailor Moon for being the most blatant example of animation reuse. But
That's when you get the universal chant, Monk. Stock footage.
yeah,
Yep.
but I understand the reason for it. The first thing that I would probably do if I was running that kind of production is hire the Wang brothers.
Yeah.
'Cause
Okay.
First off, they got fucked hard by 4 kids, and second, even if they won a daytime Emmy in the process, and second off, because of you would very much need some people who, one, understand the kind of practical effects needed very well, and two, have an understanding of fight choreography to make this kind of thing work. I mean, if you could hire the stunt team for Into the Badlands as well, I'd go with that too. But that might be a bit of bias
Hire
because
any third leg suit actors from Toei themselves.
I mean, hell, if you can somehow miracle it happen, bring in Sakamoto. I'm pretty sure he'd be pretty sure he if
There's your entire budget gone though at that
yeah,
point.
that's the problem. Somebody like Sakamoto wouldn't come cheap.
That's why I said the third string suit actors.
But I'd say the other thing that would probably have to be done is and this might sound a bit blasphemous, but I would not directly hire any previous show writers.
Makes sense.
The reason why I say that is I imagine for a lot of them there would be the temptation to write it the same way as the TV shows. The only two people the only person who I would be willing to make an exception for, and I'm pretty sure he wouldn't come cheap, is Lin.
Yeah.
And
Again, there goes your whole budget.
the big reason why I bring up Lin himself, and he probably wouldn't even be able to take it because of conflicts, is because of the fact that his writing, at the very least, was more willing to veer off from the traditional formula compared to other writers. Even though he kind of wrote the book on how you'd write a season, he's if you look at some of his stuff, it's not like he was extremely stringent with formula. I'd say the only time that it really was when he was phoning it in during the latter half of the Neo Saban era, especially Ninja Steel, which, to be honest, I barely remember anything about Ninja Steel, so that should say volumes.
Well, I mean,
to be fair, that was
that
more
is-
Saban kind of forcing his hand more than anything.
well, and let's also be fair in the fact that not remembering anything about Ninja Steel is probably a blessing in disguise, considering what it's based off of.
Yeah.
I'm in a good mood right now.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, it's a blessing in disguise that you can't remember it. Just go forward.
But
Let's keep it that way.
yeah. But but the big reason why I would probably something that I ended up learning when when I had Spike on the show last month was how much of a changer it was to have people who actually had acting backgrounds doing dubbing, as opposed to the Animiego days where they just grabbed anybody that they could. And it's for that kind of reason that when it comes to the writing, because something like this is going to live and die on its writing and on its action, you would want to bring people in who have experience, who have some experience when it comes to writing, but not this one highly specialized form of experience when it comes to the TV shows. They would be people who just have proper writings, and because of that, and through that you give them summaries of different seasons, and basically give them a Bible. Do the Harv Bennett process.
I was thinking about that actually. Yeah.
It's. I think it'd be really easy to make a series Bible for just about any Sentai. So,
well, I'm not. When it comes to a series Bible, this wouldn't be specific to any certain Sentai or any certain previous season, but general themes that run throughout.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could create an overall series Bible that you would then just integrate elements from, and then create the miniseries based off of that.
Yeah. And as I mentioned during the Magical Shonen episode of GeekWatch, I would look. The hero's journey is going to continue as a storytelling model because it works, and since we're introducing this brand new vibe with everything, that's what you want to build with.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now, admittedly, something like the hero's journey is trickier to do when you have multiple people involved, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. It can be done. Hell, we've seen it done.
We're seeing it done in the current series of Kira Major.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not impossible. In fact, I think when it comes to the hero's journey with multiple heroes, a team of heroes, I think Tokusatsu has a better grasp on that than most other mediums, to be honest.
Yeah. And the the other thing to consider when doing something like this is to make clear that this is meant to have this is meant to have the spirit of other shows or the like, but it is not trying to directly adapt them. Like, if somebody wanted to really do a PR movie or series, they would have to nail down how not how different, but rather they'd have to make very clear what its identity is first and foremost, and that's kind of what I'm trying to get at with this particular hypothesis. Like, I'm not saying present it as this isn't your father's PR or something like that, because that's setting yourself up for disaster. But more
Yeah.
of this is going to be familiar, but it's not. But do not come in with the expectations that you would from either the TV from any of the previous TV shows. And I think that if you present things in a way where it's very clear that you're doing something familiar but different, but still honoring what came before, the diehards will be more accepting. There are obviously going to be the purists, but the purists, no matter what fan base you're talking about, will always be a minority.
Yeah.
And so, if I wanted to voice that in PR terms, I think the best way to say it is, this is a different corner of the Morphin Grid.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody will get the idea that, yeah, it's still in the Morphin Grid, it's still Power Rangers, but it's not going to be the same as other Power Rangers.
Yeah, and given the fact that there's already been a decade of different styles throughout seasons, that's why I'd say that the fan base would be a little forgiving if you made this kind of thing clear.
Oh yeah, especially when they stopped connecting each team from season to season. That was actually a boon to them, like the fact that they didn't connect SPD and Time Force and everything else together.
Yeah,
They're all from the grid, but they're not all, like with the original seasons of Mighty Morphin and etc., a continuance. And I think that was actually at the end of Lost Galaxy when they stopped doing a continuance, wasn't it?
Lost Galaxy was kind of a transitional period where it was a new team. It still had some connections to the past, but they were very small. And that was kind of when they started that trend.
Yeah, when they started going towards, okay, each season can be its own team. We don't need them to be people from the previous teams.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you're very right in that respect, that since that started happening, the Power Rangers fans have gotten used to the fact that Power Rangers can and do change from season to season.
I know that among certain creatives, there's this trend to be in fear of the hardcore fan base. I would like obviously one of the big one of if I could in this hypothetical situation, one of the big things to do, go if there's room on the schedule to go to a con, go to that con. If there's room on the schedule to go on somebody's podcast, go on that podcast, because getting the hardcores on your side is going to be the most reliable audience that you can get. Because if you've got them hooked in, you're gonna have a one that you can go on even when the casuals leave. But if you lose them, you're not getting that back, and there's not going to be a magic greener wave of grass coming in. Because I know people say the grass is greener on the other side. I say that the grass is only greener on the other side because it's radioactive.
Yeah.
There's one comment that said if that had happened for the Turbo movie, would it have been better, worse, or the same? Same. The ultimate problem with doing that kind of movie was that they were trying to do a first episode on the silver screen. It's not the first time that this sort of thing has been tried, and it's been tried with more popular works in past decades, and it never works. And because, but with, and the other thing is the fact that I would also argue not just in doing panels, but if you can have people show up unannounced at local cons, you can easily give off the impression of, hey, we're not trying to be some highfalutin people with this project.
Yeah.
And the main reason I bring up that kind of thing is you've got people like, say, Nathan Fillion, who had a habit for years of just showing up at conventions unannounced. Oh, that was how I met him. But the point with all of these is that there are means of doing it. So I know I came with the attitude that it wouldn't work, but I think the bigger takeaway is that it can only work with the right approach, and you can't transfer one approach to another medium. In fact, I think we've seen for quite a while that adapting something from one type of medium to another type of medium never works.
Never is a hard.
I'm not going to go with never. That's a bit too strong. I'll go with it's one that has a lot of pitfalls. I think would be a better way to put it.
There's a lot of ways that it can go wrong if you aren't careful. That's very true. But I mean, to be honest here, if we're talking about adapting from one medium to another, Japan has an entire industry about that. Its name is anime.
Yeah.
I did need to say there are very successful and good versions of it that happen quite a lot.
That's why I had to catch myself on the matter.
I just figured I'd help you out there, Monk.
Mm-hmm.
Always happy to help. Even when it's reminding you that the Power Rangers Zord from 2017 looks like Gaiwer Gigantic.
Fuck you.
You're welcome.
Eventually there will come a day where I am able to do an entire episode of GeekWatch without swearing. This is not one of those days.
Any day you have me will never be one of those days, Monk.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Monk, you're asking for a miracle there.
Monk, in fact, I think it would need to be a day where none of us show up. Because one of us inevitably brings up something.
I want to make clear that I am not Bruce Banner or something when it comes to my anger. Some people seem to think that it's a case where I'm just a hair trigger away from snapping. No, it's not that. It's a slow boiling anger that just simmers in the pot. Never boils over, but don't get your hands near it, otherwise you might burn.
That's why he pours so much alcohol into it. Makes it tasty.
Well, would you drink sake cold?
No.
I didn't think so. But I think that is as good a spot as any to capstone this particular episode of GeekWatch. Now, I do have a couple interviews lined up for this week. The big one is going to be at 2 on Saturday. I will have it now, assuming that nothing goes wrong and nobody has to pull out. I will have Brendan Davis and Deathblade on the show.
Awesome.
Because Righteous Blood, Ruthless Blades is already out, and we'll be able to I'll be able to talk about that. I'm hoping that nothing terrible happens on that front.
I applied to be one of Deathblade's pre-readers for one of the stories he's writing, but I didn't get accepted. I am sad.
It is what it is. And there's going to be a few more surprises that I'll have throughout the week. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk, and